Promise me. Promise me.
All right, Game of Thrones fans, what's happening? Now, this scene at the Tower of Joy, where Bran was pretty much, Bran's like a peeping Tom now. Well, basically, he wanted to know, what was in the Tower of Joy. He found his Aunt Lyanna and his father, in a very delicate situation because one, of course, she died that day, and two, she had Aegon Targaryen slash Jon Snow, and three, Ned Stark Ned Stark, Bran's father, okay, for one, he just killed the Sword of the Morning, and I think Jorah the Bull. That's who the other guy was. I think there was another person that was supposed to be there. There were three. There was three. It was supposed to be 3-on-7, I think. But nonetheless, we'll just skip that. But, he had just killed the Sword of the Morning, of course, who was, sworn to, the king at that time, Aerys Targaryen, the Mad King. But nonetheless, so Ned is thinking, okay, this whole war, all this bloodshed was for nothing. For one, he doesn't know that Lyanna was married to Rhaegar. He doesn't know this at this point. All he knows is his sister is dying, and she's saying, promise me you won't tell anybody who this person is, who this royal baby is. You know what I mean? And of course he didn't have time to ask her, how did all this come about? But we saw that Rhaegar annulled the marriage to the Dornish woman and then turned around and remarried his sister, Lyanna, because Rhaegar wanted to have a third child. The three-headed dragon, or the three dragons, or however that goes for all you readers out there. And he found out that his wife at the time could not have this child, So he's like, I have to do something. So this is why the whole tourney took place, and Rhaegar gave Lyanna Stark the, whole thing after he won, and everybody was like, oh my goodness, what just happened? There's probably an easier way of going about it, saying, hey, she can't have kids, can I marry somebody else? And then having a tournament to see who the new wife would be. But no, everything's done in secret, and then everybody starts killing each other. So Ned, he's like, why don't I just kill this kid? He had to think that. Why don't, this little brat, my nephew, you little brat, you're a Targaryen, for one. Okay, for one, you're my blood. All right? For two, I'm an honorable man. This is why he probably didn't do it. Because honor is Ned's everything. He has to have it. The Starks are full of that honor, and it gets them killed. But honor is how they live. Because you got to understand, the Starks come from a line of kings. You know what I'm saying? And one of them was the king who knelt. But nonetheless, they still come from a line of kings and lords. So honor is everything. Their word is everything. And this is why Lyanna was saying, promise me. She wanted to hear it. Promise me, Ned. Promise me. Because she knows Ned is bound by his honor, even as a child. And his father was the same way. This is why his father marched up there and got himself killed when he went south. And pretty much, him and his hot-headed son, Bran, got herself burned to death. But it was honor that made them go up there. Now, you know they didn't go alone, too, so there was probably a small company of Stark men that went up there, and they all died. But nonetheless, we just hear about those two. But you got so this child, this Targaryen child, now, this child is not a Stark. This child has the name of his father and of his great-grandfather or great-great-great-great-grandfather. You know, Aegon Targaryen, first of his name. So when he first landed in Westeros, it was, what, 300 years ago? So it's like great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. Nonetheless, he's like, when this child grows up, is this child going to be king? Because you got to understand, Aerys just died. King Aerys just died. Rhaegar just died. And there's, you know, Viserys, and then, of course, Daenerys. You know, those two, they fled. They're gone. You know, so it's like, if this child stays here, this child's going to die. But is it possible at one time this child could be king? Now, of course, there's two ahead of him. But but is Ned thinking this, like, what if I kept this child and raised this child and then told everybody eventually here in Westeros that this is, you know, Aegon Targaryen, this was his father, this was his mother, he is rightfully the king of Westeros, and now everybody should bow down to him, yada, yada, yada. You know, is he thinking this? You know, raise him as your child, don't tell anybody, although your wife is super pissed at you. Like, what is his real thoughts on this whole thing? Or is it just like the Theon issue when they went over there to the Iron Islands and kicked Theon's fathers behind because, you know, he razed Lannisport and all this other stuff and burned all the ships and pretty much started a war, and then, you know, they went over there and beat the hell out of him, and he had to kneel, but all of his sons, except for Theon, was killed, and then, of course, you know, Theon ended up, you know, becoming a mainlander because he was taken by the honorable Ned Stark. If it wasn't for Ned's honor, would Jon Snow be alive? Would Aegon Targaryen be alive? Just some food for thought. Anyways, thanks for stopping by, Game of Thrones fans. Talk to you later, people.